All of these financial institutions, they buy politicians. You can take this big ton of money, and then you can start to buy people. Let me tell you, it's not who's the president. It's who's controlling the wallet. So it's
and who's that?
The hedge funds, BlackRock, the banks. These guys run it.
A couple of years ago, we released this legendary video. BlackRock, the company that owns the world, with over 3.5 million views. But back then, we only had secondhand information to go off of. But now, we have this guy, Sergey Varlay, a BlackRock recruiter exposing it all, thanks to an undercover operation by James O'Keefe.
First, there's the senators, and these guys are cheap. You got 10 grand, you can buy a senator. I can give you 500K right now, no questions asked.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do this. We're done. Volatility creates opportunity to make profit. War is real good for business. You're like an undercover reporter. I don't know, people don't give a shit. This is beyond them.
So now, from the horse's mouth itself, here's a simple guide on how to actually rule the world. Step number 1, to rule the world, you first need to control an obscene amount of money. See, money gets you to the big boys table. And when you're at the big boys table, that's where you can actually start influencing how the world works.
Anybody who wants to go into politics, they're all puppets. There are 150 and they're all men that run the world. Period, full stop. They control most of the important assets, they control the money flows. And these are not the tech entrepreneurs. Now, they are going to get rolled over the next 5 to 10 years by the people that are really underneath pulling the strings. And when you get behind the curtain and see how that world works, what you realize is it is unfairly set up for them and their progeny. First order of business is, I want to break through and be at that table. That's the first order of business. And the way that I do that is by proving that I can do what they do as well as they do it. And then do it better than how they do it. Because at the end of the day, they are commercial animals, okay? And they'll open the door out of curiosity and they'll let me stay because I add value.
But it all starts with money.
You acquire stuff. You diversify, you acquire, you keep acquiring, you spend whatever you make in acquiring more. And at a certain point, your risk level is super low. Like, imagine you've invested in 10 different industries, from food to drinks to like technology, right? One of them fails, it doesn't matter. You have 9 others to back you up. Risk management is inherently in just about everything. And in the finance space, it's all about the money you make. You don't let it sit. You keep using it over and over, and exponential growth. You own a little bit of everything, and that little bit of everything gives you so much money on a yearly basis.
And that's exactly what BlackRock did. Today, BlackRock has more than $9 trillion of assets under management. And you know what that means, right? It means that if BlackRock was a country, they would be the 4th biggest country in the world in terms of assets, surpassed only by Japan, China, and the US. That means BlackRock is bigger than the UK, bigger than Germany, bigger than France, Canada, Italy, and they own a percentage of every single major company in existence. So BlackRock is now in this position where not only do they have this incredible influence over every single company out there, but now if all they did was sit back and do nothing, they would still get another $500 billion every year if all they did was grow their assets by another 5%. Now that is power. It's why their assets under management is projected to hit $15 trillion by 2028. And now that you own a little bit of everything, you now have this bird's eye view of the entire economy that no one else can see. Think about it, if you can see where money is flowing into and out of for the entire economy, that is insanely valuable. So now it's time to use this advantage to make yourself useful to the government. So useful that the government starts to become dependent on you. Aside from the public companies that BlackRock is invested in, like Coca-Cola, BlackRock also has their grubby little fingers inside of a bunch of private companies as well, to the tune of tens of billions of dollars. And this is with their private equity division. And why is BlackRock in private equity? Because private equity is where you're able to get in early on exclusive companies before they go public, before they potentially go to the moon, while also giving BlackRock a lot more influence on the company from the inside. Like imagine if you got into Tesla just before they went public. That is private equity investing. Private equity investing has traditionally been reserved for giants like BlackRock, who can write million-dollar checks to private companies. And on top of that, the downside of private equity is that typically your money isn't very liquid. It's not like the stock market where you can just sell your shares whenever you want, so typically your money is locked in for years at a time, which is not ideal. But what if you could have the best of both worlds? What if you could get exposure to some of the most innovative private companies while also having the liquidity of a publicly traded stock? Step number 2, make yourself indispensable to the governments.
Economic simulation. They need to understand the impact of something, right? They're gonna raise the interest rate, for example. It's gonna create this cascade of various factors that people aren't, they're not sure what it's gonna do, basically.
This is where BlackRock's secretive financial markets advisory group comes in. Now, BlackRock's Financial Market Advisories Group sounds like a vague, unassuming division of the company, and on paper, this division does not even make BlackRock all that much money. But the secret division is by far BlackRock's most important. The Financial Markets Advisory Group does everything from risk analysis to stress testing asset valuations for groups like the European Central Bank, the government of Greece, and of course, America's Federal Reserve. And by offering services that no one else can provide to big business and the government, BlackRock started racking up a lot of political goodwill with the most important decision makers in the world. This allows BlackRock to have a hand inside almost every major central bank and financial authority in the world. Just imagine the kind of insider information you could have at your fingertips if you were the one helping central banks around the world make decisions. Recessions, major market crashes, decisions to raise interest rates, to lower interest rates. If we already know that politicians have repeatedly done insider trading on these things in the past, it's safe to assume that BlackRock definitely knows about all these things well in advance, way before they happen, especially when they're the ones helping these politicians make the decisions. Today, BlackRock has become completely and utterly entrenched in the American government, along with many other institutions around the world. The government asked BlackRock to help organize the sale of Bear Stearns after the 2008 financial crisis. They asked BlackRock to help with the bond buyback program during COVID, and BlackRock has even helped the Vatican get their finances in order. And when you've infiltrated governments this deeply, it makes buying off the politicians that much easier. Step number 3, buy yourself a few politicians.
All of these financial institutions, they buy politicians. Let me tell you, it's not who's the president, it's who's controlling the wallet. First, there's the senators, and these guys are cheap. You got 10 grand, you can buy a senator. I can give you 500K right now, no questions asked. Yeah. It doesn't matter who wins. They're in my pocket at this point.
Here's what you have to understand about politics, is that even though they look and sound all powerful on TV, these politicians are nothing. They don't have any actual power, they are merely puppets. Most of them don't start out with any money, so in order to get elected, they have to befriend wealthy donors like you. And when you actually get them elected, most American senators, for example, only make a measly $174,000 a year, which means these puppets are incredibly easy to bribe. Think about it, if all you offer them was $500,000, that's almost triple their yearly salary. So of course they're gonna bend over and take it. $500,000 for you is quite literally chump change, so it's a pretty good deal. But keep in mind, in the US there are campaign contribution limits. But don't worry, because there are plenty of ways for a politician to receive $500,000 worth of value from you without you actually having to wire them $500,000, wink wink. You just gotta get creative. And now that you have the politicians in your pocket, now it's time to double down on one of the most profitable arenas, war.
I'll give an example. Russia blows up Ukraine's grain silos. Price of wheat's gonna go mad up. So what are you gonna do if you're a trading firm? The moment that news hits, within a millisecond, you're gonna pump trades into whoever the wheat suppliers are, into their stocks. Within an hour or two, that stock goes up, and then you sell, and you just made, I don't know, however many mil. This is fantastic if you're trading. Volatility creates opportunity to make profit. War is real good for business. It's exciting when goes wrong. right?
And that's not all. In June 2023, BlackRock announced it will be setting up a reconstruction bank with the Ukrainian government to help rebuild the country and attract private investments. And even though BlackRock said they're going to be offering their help for free, this move will put BlackRock in the perfect position to get in early on all the best investments. Think about it, if Ukraine wins this war, it's safe to assume that America is just going to dump even more money into the country to rebuild and take it over. And BlackRock will be in the perfect position to know about it first and capitalize. That's why companies like BlackRock are doing everything in their power to keep the war going. Because the more damage the war creates, the more reconstruction will be needed.
Ukraine is good for business. You know that, right? We don't want the conflict to end.
If you own shares in Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, and Boeing just like BlackRock does, then war is great for business. If you have contacts in the government that tell you when Ukraine's grain silos are blown up, or when America is going to sanction Russian natural gas so you can profit off of it, war is great for business. If you own shares in the companies that are eventually going to be hired to rebuild Ukraine, war is great for business. And from there, you're kind of set. Because again, if all you did right now as BlackRock was just sit back and let your money compound, it will practically be impossible for anyone to catch up to you. You'll keep getting more and more in bed with governments around the world. As you continue helping them, you'll continue buying more politicians, you'll continue getting first dibs on the most lucrative investments out there, and you'll continue profiting off of crises as they happen. All you gotta do is make sure you continue operating in the shadows, staying out of the limelight as much as possible.
They don't want to be in the news. They don't want people to talk about them. They don't want to be anywhere on the radar.
Why not?
I don't know, but I suspect it's probably because it's easier to do things when people aren't thinking about it.
But let's be real. Even if the masses did realize what you were up to, they're not gonna do anything about it. They're too preoccupied with TikTok paying their rent on where they're gonna go out this weekend to care.
No people don't give a shit. This is beyond them.
So that is the cycle of life. First you get the money, then you get the power, then you get everything.
What I try to tell you, this country, you gotta make the money first. Then when you get the money, you get the power. Then when you get the power, then you get the woman. That's why you gotta make your own moves.